The Obi Wan Kenobi series finished releasing on Disney Plus a while ago, and let me just say, there's a lot of stuff wrong with this show. Given that there are 6 episodes of content to cover, I can't really do an in-depth analysis of each one in one concise video without it being over an hour long, so I'll just try and cover the main points. For anyone watching this video, I will be discussing this with full spoilers, so if you haven't seen this show yet and don't want it to be spoiled, this is your warning. I mean, I wouldn't even recommend wasting your time on this show in the first place, but if you think it could be worth it, then be my guest. Also, if a lot of this review sounds awfully similar to content by The Critical Drinker, I've been watching quite a few of his videos, what with all the controversial movies and shows that have been coming out lately, so some of his style may have rubbed off on me somewhat. Let's start out with a brief plot summary. Obi Wan is on Tatooine, tasked with watching over 10-year-old Luke while trying to stay hidden as he's one of the few surviving Jedi after Order 66. The Empire's Inquisitors, half of which look like cosplayers on a budget, come to Tatooine trying to find Jedi, but Obi Wan manages to keep out of their sight. The focus then switches to Alderaan, where a young Leia is living with her adopted family. Shortly after this introduction, she is abducted by a handful of dudes I like to refer to as the most incompetent kidnappers in all of film history. After hearing about this, Bail Organa contacts Obi-Wan asking for his help to find and rescue Leia.
I'm not the man you remember.
Well, you're going to have to be.
I can't leave the boy.
This isn't about the boy, and you know it.
He reluctantly agrees and takes the ship off planet, apparently forgetting that he's supposed to be watching over Luke. He arrives at a planet that's basically space Hong Kong and somehow manages to find Leia after speaking to a grand total of 2 people. I still have no clue how people always know exactly where on a planet to land in order to find what they're looking for. Guess it's just a little something like to call raw convenience. Anyhow, Obi-Wan rescues Leia and the 2 of them are pursued by possibly one of the most annoying Star Wars characters I've ever been introduced to. An overconfident, snarky female inquisitor named Reva. This character turns out to be quite the central plot point, which really sucks as you have to put up with her shenanigans for the painfully large amount of screen time she gets in every single episode. Oh, and did I mention she suddenly just stabs the Grand Inquisitor through the stomach out of the blue, refuses to elaborate, and leaves? Yeah, I was as confused as you were. Obi-Wan and Leia escape and travel to desert planet number 487, and suddenly, boom, Darth Vader shows up and he and Obi-Wan have a duel. Obi-Wan gets away despite being literally barbecued for a few seconds. How? Raw convenience. While this is happening, Leia gets captured again. Only this time by Reva, who takes her to the Inquisitorium and holds her for questioning. Obi-Wan travels to this planet and sneaks in to rescue her, from what I've heard, copying a bunch of exact scenarios from a game called Jedi Fallen Order in the process. Never mind the fact that he somehow gets into a, quote, high-security Imperial facility with absolutely no issues. And let me tell you, there's a whole lot of other dumbness during this sequence. Obi-Wan rescues Leia again and they travel away to, drumroll please, another desert planet. Seriously, I think this show alone has more desert planets than the whole rest of Star Wars. There's only so many different colors of sand, mate. Trying really hard not to make an Anakin joke right now. Anyhow, they arrive on the new planet and immediately afterwards are attacked by a group of Imperials, with Vader himself eventually showing up on the scene. The fugitives, there's a whole group of them by now, escape in another ship and Reva makes a pathetic attempt to kill Vader, who toys with her like she's a fly before promptly stabbing her. Karma. Not surprisingly, she survives this. Man, I can't take stab wounds seriously anymore, as someone mentioned in a YouTube comment somewhere. Qui-Gon is literally one of the only people in Star Wars to actually die from being stabbed with a lightsaber. This is just sad. The final sequence has Vader chasing down the fugitive ship in his Star Destroyer, and suddenly abandoning it to chase down Obi-Wan, who goes off on a separate ship as a distraction and lands on a nearby planet. Vader arrives and the 2 of them duel a final time, resulting in Vader's helmet being sliced open like in that duel with Ahsoka and Rebels, after which Obi-Wan just believes him. Reva somehow gets herself to Tatooine and tries to kill Luke, but has a last-minute change of heart resulting in a redemption arc that I totally didn't see coming from a mile away. The show wraps up with Obi-Wan back on Tatooine after returning Leia to Alderaan and finishes off after inserting probably 2 of the best moments in the entire series. Not gonna lie, it really felt like they were checking off boxes near the end of the last episode. Obi-Wan saying hello there, yep. Qui-Gon Force Ghost reveal, yep. Palpatine appearing in a hologram for 10 seconds, yep. But yeah, that's basically the plot summed up. Now time to get into what I did and didn't like about the show. And let me tell you, there's a whole lot more to the latter. Alright, beginning into things I did like, there were certainly a lot of decent Darth Vader scenes in this show. He wasn't done perfectly, no thanks to Disney, but for the most part he was pretty cool. I love that James Earl Jones is still voicing him even at over 90 years old. Huge respect to him for that. The second fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, while flawed at times, was mostly good in my opinion. Obi Wan suddenly being able to lift up a huge quantity of giant boulders at once didn't make much sense after what had gone on previously, although I guess it looked cool. The highlight of this fight, in fact of the whole 6th episode for me, is easily the dialogue between the two that takes place after Obi Wan slices Vader's helmet open.
Anakin's gone. I am what remains.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Anakin.
You can really see Ewan's acting abilities coming out with his reaction to seeing Anakin's face again. It was pretty heartbreaking. It just sucks that such a good scene was bogged down by the fact that most of the rest of the show was pretty bad in comparison. I have to admit, I did actually get pretty excited when Obi-Wan said,
Hello there.
again. I'd been hoping that they'd do it, but quite honestly wasn't actually expecting it to happen. Seeing Qui-Gon's Force Ghost was a similar experience. I was glad that they did finally have him show up, as some fans, myself included, have been waiting for it.
Well, took you long enough.
You know, a show is bad, and one of the best parts is unironically someone saying,
Hello there.
Another very good scene, or scenes I should say, were of course the flashbacks to Obi-Wan and Anakin training on Coruscant. I didn't mind that much that Hayden looked older, although I will say his age showed a lot more in the flashbacks of the younglings. Not sure why he looked older there than in the training scenes, but whatever. There were definitely more moments sprinkled throughout the series that were not bad, but once again they weren't enough to make up for all the bad writing, and ultimately they just end up being little bits of relief from the overarching storyline. As for the things I didn't like, well, to start things off, I think the biggest problem with this show was the overall weak writing and poorly developed characters. Reva is the perfect example of how not to build up a character, and her story is so badly executed throughout the show that her, quote, redemption arc near the end really doesn't end up meaning that much. At least that's how it felt to me. You can't just go and let a person off the hook for doing one good act after a bunch of bad ones. That's not how morality works.
You haven't failed them by showing mercy. You have given them peace. You have honored them.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, fam. I felt like Obi-Wan's character in general was really messed around with, as the show portrays him consistently making mistakes that the Obi-Wan from the prequels would never have made, then having him rescued or corrected by far younger, more inexperienced characters. This really annoyed me because Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character. Not only that, but also my favorite movie character, period. And seeing the way he was treated in his own show was frankly insulting. The series could have been far better had it been under more competent writers. Of course, I couldn't make a review of Kenobi without saying something about the Inquisitors. I still find it hilarious how the trailers had only been out for a few days and the internet was already being bombarded with memes making fun of the Grand Inquisitor's face. Frankly, I don't blame them. The Inquisitors were definitely one of the many things in this show that felt cheaply done. While the Grand Inquisitor's design did grow on me a little during the show, there's no denying that it could have been a whole lot better than it was. And don't even get me started on this guy. You know, he's never actually referred to as the fifth brother by name in the show, so I'm just going to keep pretending that he's a completely different Inquisitor. Everyone knows that a dude with some green face paint and a mushroom-shaped hat slapped on top of his top-notch costume design. Great job, Disney. Not to mention that his voice also sounds like Bosk trying to do a Batman impression.
She thinks she will gain favor by capturing Kenobi.
No offense to the actor, of course. I think he did a fine job with what he was given. This character just feels so far removed from the one in Rebels that I can't even see them as being one and the same. Alright, I think I've slandered the Inquisitors enough for now. Going back a little to what I said about Obi-Wan earlier, a running theme in this show seems to be people breaking character. Even Darth Vader isn't immune to this, apparently. One scene in particular that infuriated me to no end was when Vader charges into the room where Reva is and starts force-choking her for letting Kenobi get away. I thought, finally, she's getting what she deserves for her incompetence. But almost as soon as I had that thought, she tells Vader that she put a tracker on their ship and he not only lets her go, but gently lets her down to the floor. I cannot express how much this absolutely triggered me. Vader never lets anyone go that easily. At the very least, Reva should have been just dropped to the floor. I mean, I'd rather her just be done away with entirely, but obviously that wouldn't have worked if the plot that they had going. Honestly, looking back on it, I'm surprised that they even let Vader choke her and later had her impaled by a lightsaber in the first place, given the lengths that Disney has gone to in order to protect their precious character.
My precious.
Other than these main problems, there were plenty of other, more minor ones scattered throughout the series. There are moments where the entire cinematography just felt cheap, such as when Darth Vader uses the Force to pull a ship down out of the air. It shakes around way too much and ends up looking kinda silly, and I think this could have been easily fixed if had the producers just given the CGI people a little more time to touch things up. The same could be said of the Inquisitor designs. Heck, I've seen people on YouTube come up with fixes for the Grand Inquisitor's head with simple editing programs that, more often than not, end up actually looking better than the official version. That is just sad. Many scenes have rather clunky dialogue that sometimes doesn't even make sense.
It's not about us, is it? You want to do it. It's about you and him.
Just keep them safe.
Keep yourself safe, too.
Then there's moments that are just plain dumb, like the Leia chase scene where thugs literally get stopped by frickin' bushes. Or Bail Organa's message to Obi Wan telling him every possible thing that you wouldn't want the enemy to hear. Or the now infamous walk across the hangar floor of the Inquisitorium by Obi Wan whilst hiding Leia inside a huge trench coat. Sometimes I wonder whether the writers are physically trying to make us laugh out loud at the stupidity, or if they're really just that incompetent that they think people wouldn't see this as being absolutely ridiculous. Either way, all I can say is that whoever's in charge of this stuff really sucks at their job. One more thing. I was very disappointed that the trailer had both Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes, easily two of the best pieces of music in the prequel trilogy and even in all of Star Wars in my opinion. Yet neither one, in fact no original Star Wars music as far as I can see, was actually used in the show. Why they chose not to put any in is beyond me. Trailers really were much better than the show itself. Oh, and by the way, someone actually made a version of the final Vader vs. Obi Wan fight, but with Battle of the Heroes. I'll link to it down in the description. Make the whole fight so much better. To summarize, Obi Wan Kenobi is a huge mess of a show that probably could have been pulled off way better with either different writers, more time, or, ideally, both. It had its moments, but they weren't good enough to justify the rest of the show. There were tons of plot holes that left me wondering why this and that happened, sloppy dialogue, treating legacy characters as being nothing how they should be, and Reva. This series has been one of the first Disney Plus ones that I legitimately did not like. Some of the previous ones, like the Book of Boba Fett, had a lot of more redeeming moments than this show, and I at least usually got a decent amount of enjoyment out of them, even if they were also somewhat poorly done as a whole. It saddens me that I have to give my favorite characters' show such a bad review, but Disney really is going downhill with their new Star Wars content. I'm still cautiously optimistic for some of the more promising looking ones like The Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka, and Andor, but I don't want to get my hopes up too high after this absolute waste of potential. That's about it for now, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.